Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Lifestyle with Dr. Moby. I'm Dr. Moby, and today we have great guest Karen DiMarco with us. Let's welcome Karen. How are you, Karen?
I'm very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. And Karen has really great expertise in spirituality and well being. And we're going to talk a little bit one by one, but let's first find out what Karen does normally. You should tell us about your normal work.
Okay, I'll put it in a nutshell, or as nutty or shelly as I can. um, I've been a nurse for over 25 years. I spent the first 18 of those years mostly in intensive care, trauma, and flight nursing.
Mhm.
And I started my own business in 2011, private patient advocacy. And that was because just something throughout my career always really niggled at me when I saw that people who had a healthcare professional in their family, if either the patient I was taking care of was a healthcare professional or one of their family members or friends was a healthcare professional, they had better outcomes.
Mhm.
Their length of decreased morbidity, mortality, length of hospital stay was lower, and it was always because the person knew the standard of care that should be delivered. They knew how to ask for a second opinion. They knew how to do simple things like ask the staff to wash their hands and
Mhm.
alcohol swab. Just those little things went a
Mhm.
huge way
Mhm.
when our healthcare system is the third leading cause of death in this country, in the United States.
Yeah.
So I thought that there was a real thing there. So I went through a program. The founder of the program is Karen DiMarco. She partnered with the University of Arizona. And I thought when I went through the program, I was going to learn all the legal ins and outs of becoming a private patient advocate, but that was only about 10% of it. What it really was, it was all about functional medicine, epigenetics, nutrigenomics, systems biology, all these things that, are up and coming that point to root cause of illness. So I didn't just through what I learned, wasn't able to just help people be more safe within the healthcare system, but I was able to work with their doctors who only have 7 to 15 minutes with them
Mhm.
and do the research, like what's the root cause of this? How can we get them off these medications instead of worrying about all the drug interactions? How can we see if there's some things we can do to reverse these issues?
Mhm.
So that's what I've been doing. Well, and that's kind of evolved with my own story. And I don't know if you want me to stop there or get into a little bit of
Oh, no,
that.
no. Feel free. Feel free. I like your natural flow of.
Okay. Um, when I was, and it was around, ironically, same time I started my own business, that
Mm.
I was very ill. And I guess it would be more serendipitously because it was through the things that I was learning that I was able to see what was really wrong with my own health.
Mhm.
And it started at a very young age. Um, I was very depressed most of my life, sometimes suicidally, but I hid it because I would probably get told to suck it up. The kind of family I was brought in is like, you bury that stuff, you just suck it up and get on with it. I had a eating disorder from the age of 11 to the age of 37. And it almost killed me a couple of times. I knew the day it started and I can tell you the day it ended.
Yeah.
And because of the way I saw the world and was living my life, I had 3 older brothers, very successful. My family is a group of entrepreneurs, and everyone's very fit and athletic, and everyone, was a A student. It was a high pressure environment being the little sister and
Mhm.
only girl in this family. And I'm going to go around the houses a bit here, but for some reason, the most painful moments in my childhood. I mean, there's like trauma and tragedy in everybody's, it's a wonder any of us make it out alive. But
Mhm.
for me, the most painful memories was when I was left behind, that stupid little sister, or I was kind of rejected by friends because I was a little tomboy and that wasn't exactly right. So it was the rejection and the being left behind that I didn't want to feel that anymore. So somewhere in my psyche, I made up, okay, in order to not be left behind, people have to like me.
Mhm.
And in order for people to like me and approve of me, I have to be smart. I have to be
Yeah.
thin. I have to be witty. I have to be pretty, and all these things. And then I made up, in order to be those things, these are all the boxes I have to check all day long, every day. And that's hence the eating disorder and the frustration and depression and the wearing down of my nervous system from this chronic red alert and hypervigilance about what people thought of me. So doing that all day long, every day, from pretty much the age I understood language and was told, you know, what it meant to be a little girl or a good girl or a good daughter, a good sister, you know. So fast forward to the age of 37, I just started this business and I had chronic fatigue syndrome, still very depressed, still battling with eating disorders. I had a measure of white knuckle control since I had kids, but it was like, you know, it was all day long, every day, thinking about food and controlling my diet and controlling whatever. The behaviors maybe were under control, but the sickness, you know, was still in there. And I thought that was a good thing. I thought, okay, at least I'm safe. My health isn't suffering. Well, my physical health, but my mental health was severely suffering. I had a systemic yeast overgrowth I couldn't get over. I had a chronic Lyme infection. I had brain fog that was so bad at the time of this moment I'll get to. I would lose the ends of moments. I couldn't remember getting off the phone with people. I would be with my 3 little kids at the mall and I would wake up, not like wake up out of a sleep, but all of a sudden come to like, how did we get here? I couldn't remember getting them dressed. I couldn't remember driving them there. You know, they were the only kids at school without a Halloween costume because I didn't know what day it was. And I walked around and again, I hid it because I was so concerned of people approving with me. So I didn't get left behind. I went around with a sticky note pad. I called my external hard drive. And because I had to write everything down. So when I was learning all of this information, I became fascinated with neuroadrenal testing and wanted to do that as part of my practice. I thought there was an answer for me there, or maybe I thought more there's answers for other people, and subconsciously I knew there's an answer for me. So I retained a mentor who's one of the premier he's in was in Philadelphia at the time, Jess Armine Center for Bio-Individualized Medicine, and he mentored me in how to read the tests and, you know, help people recover and supplement. And so I was my first client and my tests came back and all of the chemistry indicators associated with my sympathetic nervous system, you know, the gas pedal for lay people, all of the chemical indicators, neurotransmitters associated with the brake pads of the nervous system or the parasympathetic, everything was in the toilet. Everything was red-lined low. And my cortisol, I was in a phase 3 adrenal fatigue. That's like takes 7 to 10 years to develop of chronic, you know, fight or flight. And I looked at, we looked at this together. And the first question, well, it wasn't even a question, it was a statement. He said, "You're faking it." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you come off as this all go, no quit, never let them see you sweat, all American, bubbly, happy, fun thing." He's like, "Karen, I've seen tests 50% better than yours. And people are suicidally depressed. They have no ability, anhedonia. They have no ability to experience pleasure. They're in danger of actually, you know, the suicidal ideation they're experiencing. They have no motivation. There's, you know, they need help. And this is the white noise of how I'd been living my life and how I was seeing the world. I didn't even know it. I didn't even see it because that's just familiar. That was just what it felt like to be Karen. It all came down to a loud roar. And I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker and more tired and more foggy and more whatever. But all of a sudden it was in my face, what I'd been doing to myself. And I knew I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't be on that red alert hypervigilance thing anymore, or I was going to literally kill myself. But I also felt like I would die if anybody disapproved of me. If I disappointed anyone, if anybody didn't like me, that felt like, oh my God, that's too scary. But I had to make the decision to go in that direction. And so it was this, forgive my language. Well, I guess I'll just abbreviate. I call it my puddle of snot and tears moment. It was just this moment of F it. I'm just going to be alone. I'm going to blow up to 300 pounds. People aren't going to like me. I'm going to be all by myself. And oh, what a relief. So nothing about my outside circumstances changed of my life, but everything changed in that moment. The 99% of my brain that was rented by this fear of what people thought of me was gone.
Mm.
And what I now understand is what happened was my body was able to return to homeostasis because it wasn't always driving with the parking brake on. All the inflammation downstream that was being caused by this chronic stress, this chronic fight or flight from me constantly worrying and being in fear went away. So within 3 weeks, I remember driving in my car. It was 4 o'clock and looking at the clock. This is usually a time of day I'd be like having to pry my eyes open. And it just hit me. It's, oh my God, I'm not tired. And oh my God, I haven't even thought about food in 3 weeks. And I can remember stuff. It just, because it's retrospective, I'm better. And I'll stop there because that's understanding. Since 2011 to today, that's what I do now, is I help people see the same thing I did. The program I do and the research I did was based on, it's called Foundations for Health, because not only is seeing where you're living in fear, and seeing that you don't have to be afraid, and dispelling the chronic stress that comes from that, sweeten the terrain of the body to heal itself, sweetens the terrain and gives people the potential for radical remission, but is foundational for living a really happy life.
Mm. And I think you have kind of shared with us a lot of really detailed and kind of great depth about how you felt, and that is, thank you for doing that. Tell us, for anybody who has, some of these, and we see the patient all the time. So, especially because I do sleep medicine, and then I have chronic fatigue patients also a lot. So normally, of course, we want to improve their sleep, diet, and exercise, so get their metabolism kind of going somewhere, and then make sure their body is rested when they sleep. Second thing is they eat good healthy food, because too much food is gonna overpower their system and pretty much draw is a stress, because the blood is diverted to intestines and other organs, not brain and heart, which needs a lot of work, for that. So anyways, so we definitely have, so what is your, experience with those, but there are entities which we have chronic fatigue, and unfortunately chronic fatigue is a big kind of envelope. It's not a small thing. There could be multiple symptoms. There could be chronic Lyme disease, there could be fibromyalgia, there could be mood disorders, and there could be neuroendocrine problems, or like you mentioned, some adrenal excess problems. So tell us about, you said you did a research paper on those.
Yeah, so just to begin, I see healing and health, conventional medicine, functional medicine, psychology, all of those things are part of a stream. So downstream, we have medications, to hopefully temporarily address symptoms. Then we have supplements that are a little more natural, that address maybe specific deficiencies in the body. And then middle of stream, there's behavior stuff, diet change, sleep, whatever. And then upstream is kind of psychological, spiritual things. Like that's kind of where the realm I live in. So the research study we did, my partner, John L. Makadem, he's in the UK. He also had a chronic fatigue, or ME as they call it there, for 7 years. He was sick, and he also had kind of like the spontaneous, and he'd been to every kind of doctor, did all those, the supplementing, the testing, the diet change, the sleep. He really, really focused hard on trying to get better for 7 years. And what we teach is it's good to do the downstream and the midstream stuff. But if you don't address the thing upstream that's causing the nervous system to be depleted, that's causing GABA and serotonin to be in the toilet, so you can't get a deep sleep, a good rest. You can supplement those things, but if you don't address the reason it's being run down in the first place, which is usually, well, often, not always, often psychological, spiritual, then you're just going to be filling a leaky bucket, right? So what I do, and what this research study did was plug the leaks, because most of the people, it was 22 people. It was a small size study. We had 11 in a control and 11 in an experimental group. The control we just observed. This experimental group was put through an 8-week program, teaching videos, which they get once a week. They covered a variety of topics. And then we'd have a call once a week. And then each participant had some one-to-one coaching by either John or I or both of us, that kind of made the content more specific to their lives. And depending on the individual, we had one woman who had been sick for 4 years. She got I can't remember what kind of it. I think it was like a strep throat infection. She had 2 little kids, 2 young smallies, and she never quite recovered. But she was really intent on recovering so that she could get back to being a mom. And it was like that hypervigilance, red alert, I have to get better. The trying was actually creating such stress that her body was not only not able to fully recover from the virus, but now she started breaking herself down. The nervous system started getting depleted because she was trying so hard to climb out of a tar pit. And then after, on the program, she saw one video, didn't even get to the first call, and she got something. It was like my puddle of snot and tears moment. Something just, she fundamentally understood something, what she was doing to herself, and said, right, I'm stopping that. I'm just going to be sick. Okay, so I don't feel good. So I'm tired. And it was something in that just understanding. Within a week, she was playing badminton, going for a swim, picking her kids up from school. She was just better. All of a sudden.
Wow.
We had one woman, I'll give you a couple examples. One woman who was sick for 40 years. She was diagnosed with chronic fatigue at 26. She entered the program at 66, often homebound, sometimes bedbound with fatigue and chronic fatigue type syndromes. She got something. By the end of the program, she was out in her yard gardening. She hadn't driven more than a couple hours or a couple miles in a long time. She was traveling across the country. Across the state. She lived in the southern part of the United States to go see a friend. She hadn't done that in decades. There was another individual who had not climbed a set of stairs since 2011, and 2007. He'd been in a wheelchair since 2011. And by the halfway through the program, he sent us a video of him on a skateboard in his kitchen.
Wow.
Just going back and forth. So, but typically when people got to the research study and then the proceeding foundations of health programs based on the research, they'd already been through everything. This was just like, what's one more thing I'll try? They'd done the diet, they'd done the testing, they'd done the supplementing, they'd done the sleep stuff and whatever, and they were able to reach some measure of recovery. But typically at that point, they're told this might be as good as it gets for the rest of your life. You're just gonna. But then they saw it was in the trying so hard. This did help. This did help me recover a certain percentage of my energy and my health, whatever. But they only got so far because then it became a trying in the tar pit, trying to climb out of the tar pit thing.
So I would like to ask you, I know you did a lot of this. This is such fascinating. I always look for answers to the problem, rather than just a band-aid, because like you said, we can manage things. And first, to define, the problem is a lot of people who have chronic pain or chronic fatigue. Most of providers might think that person is maybe not true, or what part is wrong, So there could be a problem with that, because the reason is that because they don't themselves don't know how to handle it, right? So they don't know the answers, pretty much, right?
Yes.
If I don't know the answer, I would say maybe an alien or foreign spirit or some kind of thing did, because I don't know the answer myself. So that's what happens usually. But it's good to know and to troubleshoot one by one and see if we can change life. And I'm always for the answers rather than fixing temporarily things. So first thing is to define that first to admit actually that person complaints are legit and they are real. Okay. So So, and second is to quantify that and see, like you said, you do some kind of testing with the adrenals and neurochemical, and see the normal range versus abnormal, right? And is there a correlation with the symptom?
Why?
Hmm.
Because a lot of, well, I mean, I'm not saying I'm against it, certainly. I haven't found it to be helpful by the time somebody gets to me. And I'll tell you, in 2 years ago, it's just the new way I see the issue and the new way I understand it. 2 years ago, I've moved like 18 times in 20 years. I moved around a lot. 2 years ago, I moved house again. I have 3 little kids. So we moved house, had to register everybody for school, had to find them new friends, new groups, new social groups, them and myself. Where are the emergency resources in town? There's a reason what's the top 3 stressors, right? It's just, there's a lot, especially when you have kids and you're working and all that stuff. So we moved, and a month or so later, I was just really beating myself up. I'm like, why can I get myself to go to yoga? Like, why am I so lazy and unmotivated? Why aren't I writing more? Why aren't I, come on, Care, pick yourself up. And I was really resisting my lack of motivation, my kind of bluesiness and my depression, really resisting it. And at that time, I was doing a couple neuroadrenal tests for clients. And I'm like, I wonder what mine would say. Didn't even occur to me, it was more this, like, you should know better than this, Karen. But I did one just out of curiosity. And wouldn't you know it, it was very similar to the test in 2011. A little bit better, but very similar. I was definitely very depleted. And the difference this time was, when I've done it in the past and done it for people, I look at that test and, okay, here's some supplements, here's some amino acids we can do and some cofactors, and you're depleted here. Let's, that'll make you feel better. This time I looked at that and went, I'm not supposed to be motivated right now. It was nature's signal of what things should be. Of course, I'm tired. Of course, I'm feeling a little depressed. Of course, I just moved again. So instead of trying to fix myself, I gave myself a break. And I felt, once again, much better very quickly, because I stopped beating the crap out of myself. I stopped resisting the way I felt. I just allowed, life is a sexually transmitted terminal condition. It comes with symptoms, and I was experiencing some of the symptoms of life, and I was just resisting them terribly. And that test allowed me to have some compassion for myself instead of trying to fix myself so I could get back in there. And I recovered probably much more quickly than I would have if I started supplementing myself out of the pit so that I could continue on at the pace I had been going, which was much too hard on my body.
So also tell us, your thoughts on treatment or the, some of things which patients or people can benefit.
Yeah, well, all the stuff that you mentioned, like I said, there's the river, there's a stream of the holistic approach. And I think Jess Armine, the gentleman, the doctor that mentored me, also introduced me to the cell danger response. Briefly, there's a white paper on it. It's fascinating. But in essence, it says there's 3 things that make us sick. There's environmental factors, toxins, the air we breathe, the things that get on our skin that are not good, GMOs, food we put in our body, things that can make us sick, and kind of, that. And also environmental factors like blunt force trauma and too much sitting and not enough movement, that can make you sick. There's microbial factors, bacteria, viruses, funguses, like mold toxicity, all kinds of microbial critters that get in our bodies and make us sick. And then there's psychological factors. So environmental, microbial, psychological. And our bodies are really good at helping. Our immune system, our amazing, sophisticated immune system, is really good at cleaning up toxins. But again, sometimes we need some help. So this is how I think of treatment, where what the body can't do, then you can go to a specialist or a doctor and, like, let's clean up your diet. Let's work with this, whatever. Sleep, is kind of environmental. Like, if you're not getting enough movement, what can we do to help you get moving? What can we do to help you get sleeping a little bit better? That kind of thing. Microbial. what's in there, or talk, is there mercury fillings? Is there other stuff that's constantly wearing and taking energy away from your immune system? Microbial factors. So there's testing for that. Do you have a chronic Lyme infection? Is a lot. Okay. And then addressing those things. But to me, the psychology is the linchpin, because, and what most of my functional medicine and conventional medicine friends don't know how to address, because you're not given, even psychology nowadays, and cognitive based therapies and things like that tend to bring you back into the problem, and then you kind of just recirculate the same stressors. But I digress. The psychology is the most important, because if you have a chronically over engaged, hypervigilant, red alert psychology, if you're in chronic stress, even if it's white noise chronic stress, like for me, I didn't even realize that, it takes a partner in your psychology to help you see where those blind spots are. But if the psychology is chronically engaged, it's chronically diverting energy away from the immune system and the detoxification pathways, and the microbial fights. If your psychologist. So to me, it's all three, but they all three need to be addressed. Otherwise, if you're just working on the treatments, the alternative and conventional treatments, you're just filling a leaky bucket. You got to plug the holes. And very often, as in my case, when the holes are plugged, the misunderstanding, then the bucket is actually self-filling. So you're doing things downstream to mitigate symptoms and help this person have a higher quality of life as you're plugging the bucket. And I'm not saying plugging the bucket always is 100% cure rate, but it is the stuff of radical remission,
Okay. Well, it was pleasure talking to you. If you can just give us final thoughts, and we can then say goodbye. Thank you for coming.
Yeah. I would say, for anyone who's wondering, who's heard this and is wondering, where are my blind spots? And I would just say, look at what in your life are you resisting? What are you afraid of? And sometimes just starting there, like if you're in a conversation with somebody who you're not being in integrity with yourself, you can still say no when you mean yes, or yes when you mean no, or whatever. But just starting to develop awareness of, what am I so afraid of here? It's a great start.
Well, thank you once again for coming, and it was a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure a lot of listeners will benefit from it, and talk to your provider, work and take care of your health. And it's always important, because if we don't take care of our bodies, our bodies will not be able to function properly, and it's not taken for granted that it does automatically. We have to really nurture them and take care of both spiritually and physically. With that, give us feedback and Twitter, email, whatever you like. And thank you, Karen, once again for coming to our show. Thank you.
You.